watching Numbskull News, and today we're talking about Brian Flores, former head coach of the Miami Dolphins, got fired. Now he's suing the NFL, all 32 teams, over hiring practices. Now, we're going to bust this down a little bit uh, and also go into some lies that's been told with this. But however, I am sympathetic to Mr. Flores because I think a lot of what he's saying is actually true. And no, I'm not some woke guy. I'm really not. However, that doesn't mean you can't have empathy for people who maybe walk a little different path than you, have a different story, were raised different, different culture, whatever. I can empathize with Mr. Flores. I can't exactly put myself in his shoes. I've never been that successful, number one, and I've never been black and haven't had to deal with some of the bullshit black people have to deal with in this country sometimes. Yeah, sometimes I think people use that as a crutch, and other times I think it's just honest, factual shit. I saw a lot of his interviews, and he seems, to me anyway, he seems very forthright and honest. Because the media is what it is, they keep saying, they give you little half truths, right? They say, well, we only have one black head coach. What the hell's going on? Well, I don't see it as just one black head coach. There's two men of color that are coaches right now. One of them, which everyone seems to forget, is Ron Rivera, who is the coach of the Washington Commies, Commanders, whatever. Uh, Great coach, very well respected, and not white. He's Hispanic. Okay, Hispanic, Latino. I don't know what he prefers or what's the accurate thing, but it's definitely not white. He's definitely a person of color, a POC. Mr. Flores has made some big time accusations. So let's get to some of those. All right. So when I first heard about his firing, of course, I heard that he was didn't get along with people. He didn't get along with the GM. He didn't get along with some other folks. If you looked at him sideways in the locker room, he'd get on you. He didn't get along with Tua, the quarterback. Basically, they're saying he's an angry black man. This apparently, I was not aware of this, but I've watched some other videos. I'm a person who likes to listen and see what people have to say, people with different experiences than me. And apparently, this is a thing that gets put on black men and especially black women, that they're just angry and they're prone to anger and violence, and they get scary, what or whatever it is. But the angry black man is definitely a thing that's put on some, or angry black woman is put on them just because they have a disagreement or a different way of looking at things. Uh, and when I first heard the story, I was like, oh well, if you're not going to get along with the quarterback, you're not going to get along with the GM, then you're probably going to get fired. That's just the way that is. Uh, however, however, um, I don't know how much of that is true. The media, of course, had no problem running with the story, as the media often does. They don't much give a shit. I'm telling you right now, there are plenty of white head coaches in this league, very successful white head coaches in this league that do bump heads with the front office, that do bump heads with their quarterback or with other guys. Famously, Bill Belichick, which Brian Flores is on his coaching tree, coached with Bill Belichick for a long time. And all those guys are headstrong. All those guys, hey, this is my team. I'm responsible for it. If we fail, it's on me and I get fired. So they put in everything they got in order to win games. And if someone is not working with them or doing something they're not supposed to do or is not buying in, then Mr. Flores, as a head coach, should have a problem with that and is going to try to correct that and put that person, that subordinate, in their place. When it comes to the head office, it's always, hey, y'all want to do this? I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to win games. You hired me to do this. Shut up. Let me do my job. And I think almost probably every head coach has had has had that type of conversation at some point in their career. So I don't know if that just makes him just an angry person or just makes him a head coach. I think it just makes him a head coach. So in the end, I think that's kind of bullshit. So what Mr. Flores is saying is Stephen Ross, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, offered him $100,000 per loss to tank games, which is insane, right? You're not supposed to tank games in the NFL, period, end of story, at all. And to ask your head coach to do it is really shisty and really shitty. However, you do have to prove it. He has to prove it. Um, do I doubt that? I really kind of don't, unfortunately. I don't really doubt that Stephen Ross here would do something like that. The Dolphins have not been very well run at all. I know when Brian Flores was first fired, the entire media was like, "What the hell's going on down there?" This is a good young head coach. He had a successful first year. Second year almost made the playoffs. They fell short, but they came on really strong at the end of the season. The team is fighting like hell for this coach. That's what you want. The dude is showing leadership quality. Why would you get rid of this coach? Especially when you have an unproven young quarterback, you know, that has some shortcomings. He's been benched, he's been hurt. He hadn't proven, Tua hadn't proven jack yet. So it comes out that, oh, well, Mr. Flores has anger issues and isn't getting along with anybody, so we got to shit can him. Or is that the truth? Because if it's the truth, then I don't know how the hell he stayed with Bill Belichick for 20 years. I don't know how he was with the Patriot organization as long as he was, if he doesn't know how to conduct himself properly. So apparently he can do that. So no, I'm not really buying that story, even though the media did. But being paid to tank games, it seems a little outlandish. Hugh Jackson, the former head coach of the Cleveland Browns, one of the losingest head coaches of all time, um, he has come out and said, "Hey, I was also paid to lose games. There's a reason why he had the record he did in Cleveland. As a matter of fact, he says he has evidence of this and has joined the lawsuit with Brian Flores and has said that evidence was given to the league and nothing was ever done." So if that's true, then Browns ownership is in a shit ton of hot water. And by virtue of that, possibly Miami Dolphins ownership, Mr. Ross, could be in some hot shit. I'm a huge NFL fan. Love the NFL. However, there's some janky people involved in the NFL. There's assholes in every group, and there's definitely assholes within the NFL, and people who like to look the other way, and some, they know each other, kind of the old boys network, right? Well, some of that is going to have to get broken up if this thing starts to be true. And the lawyers for Brian Flores made it sound like, hey, there's a lot more coaches coming. There's a lot more people in the woodwork. This is a class action lawsuit. So they made it sound like a lot more people with evidence is going to join this thing, which can really, really shake shit up. And by the way, Hugh Jackson, even though he's one of the losingest head coaches of all time, he's still massively respected by people high up in the NFL. So for him to come out and join the cause of Brian Flores, to me, gives Mr. Flores a lot more credibility in what he's saying. He's not standing alone on an island. Now, the next thing is concerning Brian Flores' lawsuit. And one of the things that I think really tipped the scales for him whether to file this lawsuit or not was his former boss, Bill Belichick, texted him, congratulated him on getting the New York Giants head coaching job. Keep in mind, Bill Belichick had two former coaches, assistant coaches, named Brian. And apparently, he texted the wrong freaking one. He was talking about the dude up in Buffalo who'd already gotten the job. Brian Flores was scheduled to have an interview with the Giants. Hadn't even went on said interview yet. Yet Bill Belichick already knew the outcome and who was going to get the job, even before Brian Flores had an opportunity to interview for the job. So these are the owners. These are the owners of the New York Giants, Steve Tisch and John Mara. Yeah, they look like assholes. I'll tell you. And if that's how they hire head coaches, they already got someone in mind and they're going to bring in some black guys for a token interview, then no wonder they suck. All right. I'm not saying Brian Flores was the perfect guy for their job. All I'm saying is, and I think what Giants fans would expect is for the Mora family and Steve Tisch and what any ownership, all right, anybody. This is one of the problems the Cowboys have had with Jerry Jones. He's already got it in mind who he wants to be the head coach, and he hires them instead of, exhausting some resources, having an open mind, bringing plenty of people in for the job. Instead, it's, oh, well, I already know I want this guy, or I already know I want that guy. We'll interview a few other people, bring in some token interviews. All ownership groups have been doing this. And this is one of the big problems. They bring black guys in for the token interview because they have to, right? It's part of the rules, of the Rooney Rule. You got to interview them. But they already know who they're going to hire. And Brian Flores has evidence of this. So that's a massive freaking problem. And these dumbasses, and like I said, every damn team is guilty of this, I think. Or most, I would say most of them. I can't say everybody. I'd say most of them act like the Giants' dumbass owners. Why are you already making up your mind on one specific guy who's in a whole nother organization? He's never worked for you. Why? Because Bill Belichick vouched for him. Bill Belichick would vouch for Brian Flores. He did when he got the Miami job. That makes no sense. So you can't say that. The only thing you can say is, well, that's just who we want. Maybe that's who we're comfortable with. Maybe, we're not exactly comfortable with a black guy standing here in this spot. I know that's a stretch. That's calling these guys a racist. But they are old and they do look creepy. So, but I'm putting that on them. And a lot of people on the internet have no problem putting so and so's a racist. So I'm not trying to do that. But what I'm doing is saying that their practices, it could be construed as racist and also construed as very, very stupid, because why, Brian Flores, he's an actual real candidate, not some punk, not some guy who's never been a head coach before, whatever. This guy actually has qualities and he's got results, but he's a serious candidate for the job. So why would you already have it in your head to hire somebody else? I mean, maybe you give the other guy high check marks, but hey, we need to bring in Brian Flores too and see what, because this guy's a serious guy. Oh, and by the way, they had a 3-hour interview with everybody in the Giants organization, the owners and all that stuff. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen all the time with coaching candidates, but I'm telling you right now, uh, that usually ain't going to happen till you get to some finalists when you sit down with literally everybody. It seems they went all out on that interview because they knew, oh shit, Bill Belichick already gave up the gave up the ghost here. Flores already knows what's going on, so we got to put on our best show and make it look like we're taking him seriously when they never were. Of course, that's going to piss Brian Flores off. It should. It's embarrassing to go into a full-scale interview knowing full well you have no chance at all for the job. It's bullshit. And speaking of interviews, he went on an interview with the Denver Broncos. He said they showed up late. There's John Elway and some other folks looking disheveled, which, Elway hadn't exactly aged gracefully. So he said they looked like they were drinking and, like I said, looked disheveled, whatever. Extremely late to the interview, which is disrespectful as hell. To have the guy sitting there for like an hour and it takes you that long to show up to the interview, that's just disrespectful. And he said, of course, they're denying all of it. They can go ahead and deny it. They can go ahead and deny all they want. John Elway, to me, has done a piss poor job with the Broncos. You can say, well, he's won a Super Bowl. He went to a couple. That's because he miracled his way into getting Peyton Manning, in there. That's it. It was a miracle that he was even had a chance to get Peyton Manning, because he's had no idea what to do with quarterback. None. Ain't found one. Couldn't find one before Manning. Couldn't find one after. And yet it's another place they've had a revolving door of head coaches, just like the Giants have had. And he shows up late to an interview with Brian Flores looking like shit. And good on Flores for calling him out. Everyone, this people have lionized John Elway all to hell. You know, look, great quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks, top 5 quarterback of all time, no doubt. Front office, I'm sorry, I think the guy is pretty damn worthless if you ask me. It makes everyone feel good for him being there, I suppose, but don't be an hour late to an interview. He says he wasn't. I'm sorry. I'm going to take Mr. Flores' word for it because he's desperate to get into another job. He's trying like hell to get another job. Don't tell me he was an hour late. I don't buy that at all. Especially being black. So he knows if he's a minute late, that any excuse not to hire a black head coach, they're probably going to use against him. And like I said, I hate to sound like it sounds like some woke shit, but the more and more and more you read into black coaches and the kind of hell they go through trying to get work is ridiculous. And I don't want to sit here and call John Elway racist. I don't think he is racist, but I think I think it's more of a case of him being just a really shitty front office person and disrespectful. And everyone's been kissing his ass for decades, and he thinks he's God's gift to everything football up there in Denver. And mainly what I'm trying to say is screw John Elway. It's probably good he did not get that job there, because then you'd have to deal with this dumbass all the time. So blessing in disguise. Well, then we got to get to how do we solve the problem, right? How do we get more people of color, not just black, but Asian folks, indigenous tribal people, Hispanics, whatever kind of person. How do we get more people of color into the head coaching ranks? Now, I still believe it's more important that we get more black plumbers, we get more black electricians, more black heating and AC techs, more black professionals in all walks of life. That's what we need. More black people on the streets doing a job, taking care of the business, and less black people in prison. Now that's a huge that's a huge conversation, and conversations like that are happening all the time. Some of them get censored, some of them don't. But if we just want to focus just on something that's not that important overall in our society, which is a head football coach in the NFL, what do we do about it? Because teams are already people have said, well, we need more black GMs, we need more black presidents of football operation, things like that. Well, I mean, when you hire a black executive, you already get like a compensatory 3rd-round pick. All right, so you're already incentivized to make that hire if you're an owner. So they've stepped it up, not just a Rooney Rule. They've stepped that up. I don't know how. I don't think that's really helped much. I mean, maybe step up the incentives a little bit. Maybe offer a second, and maybe have compensation if you hire a black head coach. Outside the NFL, you do have affirmative action, which tells companies they have to have a certain percentage of people of color within their organization. So you can do that, and you can do that within the front office. I don't know about coaches though, because there's different. Of course, there's the assistant coaches and the assistant to the assistant coaches. There's coordinators. There's assistants to the coordinators. There's assistant head coach and head coach. There's all kinds of different titles for coaches, and there are quite a few black coaches around the league. Whether it's a defensive line coach, offensive line coach, quarterbacks coach, special teams, whatever it is. So there's guys all around it. So I don't know how that would work, like some kind of NFL affirmative action would go with coaching, but you can definitely do it in the front office. I think you can. And with the incentive structure, maybe that'll help out a little bit. The biggest thing people are talking about is we got to get more black ownership. All the ownership is white. Here's another lie. Jacksonville does not have a white owner. It was amazing when I'm sitting here listening to someone like Stephen A. Smith going off about, oh, there's this, it's all white owners. Everyone's saying it's all white owners, it's all white owners. Shad Khan, that is not a white name. That is not the face of a white man. That is not a white mustache. That is a person of color. The fourth richest man on earth, on earth, owns an NFL team. Mr. Khan. So, kiss my butt as far as person of color. They have a person of color in ownership. However, there is the aforementioned Denver Broncos, who are now up for sale. Now, the chances of a person of color getting this team that is not from an oil-rich country is going to be kind of tough. There are not a lot of black billionaires in America. Neither is there a lot of Hispanic billionaires in America. Now, there are Hispanic billionaires in Mexico. You can, hey, if I was the NFL, I think it would behoove them to start bumping up a person of color who's a billionaire, who has the funds and they want to invest in an NFL franchise, the Denver Broncos, just for how it looks. But however, Mr. Khan, his last head coach was white. It doesn't mean you're going to get a black head coach. Miami, I think it was their GM who's black. And Mr. Flores, who's black, also got fired. So that doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to get the head coach that you want or a person of color as a head coach. So this is a tough issue, and it's one that comes up every single year. Mr. Flores definitely launched out and made this a big, big spotlight in the news. Again, it's, what do you do? People say that, well, over 70% of the players are black. Well, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter at all, because playing and coaching, that's two completely different jobs. That's two different careers. One does not equate to the other. Just because you're a good coach wouldn't make you a good player. Because you're a good player wouldn't make you a good coach. Period. However, I think there is hope coming. The top 10 quarterbacks in this league, most of them are black. And which means you're going to get more and more black backup quarterbacks. What does that mean, and what does that have anything to do with the head coach? Well, there's a lot of different ways to become a head coach. One of those ways is for a quarterback's coach to become offensive coordinator and eventually head coach, because this is a offensive heavy league. All the rules tend to go to the side of the offense. And you're getting more points scored than ever before in the history of the league. That's what this whole era is about. It's about offense. So a lot of times ownership groups, they want the most brilliant, sought after offensive minds to be their head coaches, a la Andy Reid, or younger guys like than that, Sean McVay's of the world, Mr. Shanahan and all that. So they want these super smart boy wonders on offense. And a lot of times those come out of the quarterback rooms of different teams, consisting of quarterback coaches and eventually offensive coordinators. Byron Leftwich, who was a high draft pick, had a couple decent years in the NFL as a quarterback, became a backup quarterback for a long time, now went to being a quarterback coach and, of course, offensive coordinator of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And he is now a candidate to be a head coach. And that is quite frankly, that's a big way of getting into a head coaching position, especially from the offensive side of the ball. And you're going to get a lot more candidates, I feel, of people of color, black, that are going to be going through that type of pathway to head coaching if they want it. But let's just keep in mind, there is one person of color that owns an NFL franchise. It's not all white, like the freaking media likes to say. And it would behoove the NFL to actually consider another person of color owning another NFL franchise. And this time not in, a recently expanded franchise. The Jaguars are pretty new franchise to the league, but to own one of the classic brands in the NFL, and that would be the Denver Broncos. But we'll see what happens. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll be back with some other crap later. Bye.